Hey guys, I'm your host Dee, and you're listening to the Politea with Dee, the show where I take Irish politics, break it down, and spill it just the way you like it. What do we think about that intro? Oh, sorry, and I also have my mug today that my friend got me. It says Politea with Dee. I got it as a Chris Kindle present in January. Shout out. No, to be fair, she it's actually funny because when we were doing the exchanging of gifts, like she had all my other gifts, but this hadn't arrived, and she brought the invoice. She was like, "I promise, I was like, girl, I'm not a cop. It's okay. I believe you." Do you know what I mean? So yeah, she was a bit worried that I was gonna be like upset that it was late, but I don't care. It's so cute. I don't like as long as I get it when I get it. Do you know what I mean? But it is so cute. But anyway, yeah, the intro. Because I was like looking up videos on like how do you keep a podcast engaging, how do you get people to listen and all that kind of stuff. And it was like you need an intro. I think they also you mean like you need some music or something, but I can't do that. Maybe one day I'll figure it out, but I can't do that. So yeah, that's what I have so far. But maybe I can try a different one every single week, and then we can all vote at the very end. What do we like the most? And I just like the and spill it just the way you like it because it's like mug, tea, poly tea, spill it. Do you know what I mean? Like, why am I breaking this down? You guys obviously get it. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, next a little bit about what we're talking about today. Is it Chandra? Chandra? No, Storm Chandra. The Scramblers, getting rid of those because obviously they are a scourge in society and like they've killed people. Most recently, Grace Lynch, who was only 16 years old when she got hit by a scrambler in Dublin. Um, and then also we have a bit of beef actually between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael over the alleged misuse of funds. Well, not misuse. Misuse isn't the right word, but allegedly accounts TD used money to fund more schools in her constituency than other areas in the country. So we'll get into the tea about that. I also spoke to my councillor this week, but it'll all make sense. Lol, guys, that was actually such a funny conversation. I'll tell you guys all about that. And yeah, oh, and also the SOC Dems motion on disability payments being shut down. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Chandra. What the hell is going on in the House of Commons? I don't like. I did not know it was going to be that bad. And like, I feel like it was the same for a lot of people. Apparently, other places had more warnings than, like, I think Dublin was just a shock to everybody that it got this bad. But other places like Wexford was hot, like, hit hard, but they apparently had warnings. I don't think they knew it was going to be this bad, but they apparently had warnings. But I don't even leave my house really that often. Like the only reason I was up at like 7 a.m., bro, because I was ordering a taxi for my aunt so she can get to work. And first I was thinking, why is she even getting a taxi? And I was like, oh, it's probably because of the storm. Sometimes they like order taxis for people to come in so they don't have to get public transport. No taxis accepting her. I'm like, ugh, okay. And then she's like, will you take me? I was like, damn, like it's 7 a.m. Loki, I don't want to drive this early in the morning. But I was like, F it, I guess I will take you to work because. And then she said that they were going to pay me how much they would have paid a taxi driver. So I was like, oh, let's make a bit of cash on the side. But first of all, my car doesn't start. I was like, oh, cool. Coolant is gone, whatever the hell that means. So then we have to wake up my mom to drive and she drives us. We get to like right when you leave my estate, there's like this long road just to get out of the estate. Guys, it was like red, like the back of everyone's car. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like that in this estate because you can just there's not like it's an estate, like you can't really get traffic in an estate, I feel. So I was gagged, honey, and we were like, gonna go the other way, but I was like, obviously the reason that there's so much traffic is because that other way is blocked. So we get into there. It takes like I think half an hour to just get out of a street that usually takes 30 seconds to get out of. It takes half an hour. Then we finally get onto the main road, and at the same time, I'm getting updates, and I'm seeing on the updates the road that we're supposed to be taking is closed. I'm like on RT, and it says Lamb's Cross is closed. I was like, oh. Finally, we get to the top of the road. We see the sign. It's closed. And then also, my aunt works in Nook Grove, and like near Loretta Park, and it's like all of that place is flooded. Like that was Rathfarnham, like that whole place was flooded. Like you couldn't even get. I don't know. She ended up going at night to work. How she even did that? Like she got the bus, I'm pretty sure, but how she even did that, I don't even know because it was crazy. But everywhere was flooded. But anyway, how is this a political issue? You may be wondering. I mean, everything is political in a way, but this is tea. Okay, so basically, James Brown, who's the housing minister, went on to Southeast FM and started blaming Met Aaron for withholding information. He said some state agencies seem to think that it's their duty to somehow withhold information. Oh, T. One, I agree with him, but low key, you really can't say shit because it's also the government's fault. But anyway, we'll get into that. But anyway, those comments went down like lead paint, dude. Everybody, is that what it's called? Like a lead ball? Man, I don't know. It didn't go down well, period. Okay, everybody was so angry. James Brown had a meeting with Matt Aaron, and Matt Aaron had said, like, we told everybody that needed to know about this, what was happening. Like we actually warned people on our, if you go onto our website and if you go into our social media, we said there's potential flooding, right? And they also said that they warned the local councils of places that would have, that were most likely to get flooded. Wexford County Council being one of those, and Wexford County Council came out and said, actually, yeah, they did tell us, and we feel like we got adequate warning. It's not even about the warning, actually. It's the fact that like there's not enough infrastructure in place to prevent this. But also, they were getting on to James Brown and the doll heavy. One who, like, the Labour Party said it was extraordinary that he would make these comments. He said attempting to blame Met Aaron for communications failure during Storm Chandra is ridiculous given his own failure to host a storm preparedness media briefing in advance of the storm arriving on our shores. At a time when many areas across the country are flooding due to this government's failure to fund flooding defense systems that have been called out for years, this blatant attempt to distract and deflect must be called out. Oh, and he keeps going. Oh, sorry, did I even say who this is? This is. Wait, who the hell is this? Okay, I was right. It was Kieran Hearn who said all of this. He said the government needs to acknowledge that modern communication plays a vital role in crisis management and that government must lead from the front. Okay, and then also, Social Democrats spokesperson for climate and environment, Jennifer Whitmore, accused Mr. Brown of making an extraordinary accusation, and that they were kind of give like saying that he was like very like anti-science or something, or like blaming scientists and stuff like that. And on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, I guess like he is blaming them a bit, but I blame them too. And you know what's beautiful about me is I have enough blame to go around to everybody. I blame Med Aaron, and I also blame the government. And I also blame local government at the same time. Let me get into that because I posted a TikTok, right? And I said, this is all policy, like this is all of this doesn't actually have to happen. Like we live on an island. There's no reason that every single time we get a bit of rain, I mean, it wasn't a bit of rain, it was like a lot of rain. But every time we get a bit of rain, there's floods. And like the reason I blame Met Aaron in one way is because they knew that because it had been raining for a week ahead of time, that the ground would be saturated or the soil would be saturated, so this level of rain would go on top. They said that they warned people, but I just don't think they did. One, a yellow warning is simply not enough. Like the reason that the Met Aaron system is different to like the UK, for example, where the UK measures it in disruption to life. So Met Aaron measures it on how much actual rain it is on that day. Like yes, it's a yellow weather warning alert for rain for this specific day. It doesn't take into account the other days. Like yes, they'll go and warn other counties or other specific councils, like your area will be particularly affected, but it still will give the whole country or the whole like Leinster, the whole province, the same yellow weather warning when that doesn't make sense. If you know, it needs to be more localized. Like if you know this specific place is actually in danger of flooding, then yellow doesn't make sense. It should be red. Whereas, and like that's how they do it in the UK, where like in the north of Ireland, if you will, North of Ireland and the UK, they do it as based on disruption to life. So like the amount of disruption that happened, they would have said, okay, it's going to be a red warning. I don't even know if they do the colors, but they base it on disruption to life, which is what I think we should be doing. Like, yes, okay, you're right in the way that it rained as much as you said it was going to rain, maybe a bit more. But if you knew that it was going to flood so many different places, then it probably shouldn't have been a yellow. Like, it goes yellow, orange, red. Why would you give the bottom tier warning for something like this? I don't understand. But anyway, the reason I blame local government and actual just national government in general is that we should have infrastructure in place to avoid situations like this. Like there a lot of the complaints that are happening right now is that there's like flood prevention schemes and stuff like that and systems, and they're not in place, especially in places like Enniscorthy where it floods pretty regularly. Why they don't have proper flood protection or flood prevention in place doesn't actually make sense, and it's a lot of bureaucracy, it's a lot of conversations, it's a lot of, we'll install it, and then they don't, and then things like this keep happening, and it's like you're actually wasting more money having to clean up all of these, and like all of these small businesses or just businesses in general who've spent years and years building up their business for it to just constantly be destroyed, or to even have it looming over their head that, yeah, one of these days a flood is going to come and destroy everything that I've worked so hard. And then you have to pay these people money to help them rebuild their businesses. And it's like, actually, if you could just properly invest in infrastructure, we wouldn't have to keep doing this all the fucking time, you know? And it's just exhausting because it's like we live on an island, so there's just no excuse anymore. And yeah, that's why I blame everybody. I don't just blame Met Aaron, because it's like, even if Met Aaron had said, actually, this is a red weather warning, everybody, like, be prepared, it's gonna come. There's not much people could have done in the 1 or 2 days beforehand. I think Wexford knew like a week beforehand that it was gonna be bad, but even then, it's like, what can you do? You can put this ice. I was watching Virgin Media, the group chat podcast, and they talked to a woman down in Enniscorthy, and she, like, her place flooded, and her husband was there at night with sandbags and stuff, but eventually it just got too bad, and they, like, there was 5 feet of water in their shop, and it's like, yeah, what could they actually have done to prevent something like this? Like, the best thing would to have stopped that river. I don't know what the river there is called, but to have stopped that river from flooding if they had properly invested in flood prevention schemes there, and they just are systems, and they just didn't do that. So it's like there's only so much people can prepare for if you don't give them the resources to do that. Anyway, so I was saying kind of something similar to this on my um TikTok, and I always forget that people can see my TikTok. Like, I've been called out for this before, actually, because back in my RT internship days, I did post a video about Jennifer Carroll McNeil, and I actually know her. Like, she helped me with a politics project when I was in technical school, and she seemed like a nice lady. Is she good at her job? I don't really want to say too much on that, but she is a nice lady. But I don't think because I know her, or because like I've spoken to her, that I can't criticize her. I don't know, but that wasn't even the point. It wasn't about me knowing her or not knowing her. It was the fact that I worked at RTE, and I posted a video about her criticizing her for going to a Michael Collins memorial and talking about dismantling the triple lock when, like, the day before there was a protest for Harvey Morrison Sherritt, like, trying to get justice, and it's like, you're the minister for health, and you're busy talking about dismantling the triple lock. Like, how about you go and talk to Harvey's family instead? Like, know your place, know your boundaries. Like, it's just a slap in the face to that family that you've decided to take this time to talk about something that's not even in your remit. And it's like, why are we still talking about defense when we've problems at home that we should be fixing and focusing on? So I just said that in a TikTok, and I was like, that's a bit like annoying, bruh. Was it the next day? Maybe it was like a few days later. I get called into this office by my editor, and he's like, you can't, like, had she seen that, and she, like, knew that you worked at RTE, it was only an internship, I was only there for 6 months, but, like, he was like, had she seen that and, like, came into our team and complained, like, we would have gotten in trouble, so, like, you have to take it down. He also was like, you should probably take down your account and all, and I was like, well, I just was like, yeah, I'll think about that. I was like, I'm not taking down my account. I'm only here for 6 months, and at this point it was 3 months in, so I was like, I only have 3 months left. I'm not taking down my account. I did slow down with the posting, which I wasn't posting regularly anyway, because I was stressed out. That job was like, it was exhausting. Like, there was so much to be doing all the time, and I was like learning. So, like, I was learning on the job. I didn't do journalism in college, so I was like learning every single thing while I was there. So that was just a bit of a stressful time. But anyway, that was the first time that I was like, oh, maybe people can't see the stuff that they post. Like, I kind of got his point in a way, but I don't know. I just like, I was like, I just can never be in the situation again where I cannot say what I want to say. Like, that was just like when I was like, yeah, maybe not for me, maybe not for me. Um, so yeah, I always forget that people can see what I post. So I posted that TikTok the about the fact that I'm like, my local councillors are on TikTok and on Instagram and Facebook being like, don't go on this road, don't go on this road, it's flooded. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock, we can see that it's flooded. Like, maybe you should have, drained the systems and not like drained the gullies and all that kind of stuff beforehand, and not them specifically. Like, they obviously need to outsource that. I don't know how local politics works, honestly, but I was like, surely somebody should have done that. So I posted that on TikTok. Why is one of the dudes in my comment? I was like, what the hell is going on, bro? So he comments on my Instagram. So I was like, oh, let me chat to this dude, right? He's nice, to be fair. Like, he's actually very nice. So he was like, he sent me his number and he was like, you can call me. So I called him yesterday. Probably wasn't the best day to call him because I was really going through it that entire day. So I probably shouldn't have called him because I was in Costa and I literally had a headache. I couldn't even concentrate because I'd been crying all day. I was like, what the hell am I doing? But I just needed something to distract me. So I was like, oh, let me just do this now. Because it was like the first minute that I was like, I can actually think a bit, but my head was scrambled, honestly. So I talked to him on the phone and it's really nice. And first, I asked him, I was like, why did this place flood? First of all, he said that he's actually going to come onto the podcast, so I won't even get too much into what he said about the flooding and stuff because I would like him to explain it. And I also was learning so much about how local politics works that I'm like, I feel like you guys would also like to know that because I had so many assumptions that were just not true. Okay, but I asked him, like, does he know why the place flooded? And he was like, no, like, we're still looking into that. And he was saying stuff about, like, obviously people might like Ticknock is a place that flooded, but it's like some people might have private property and could have done something to the land without telling the council that could have led to a flooding. Um, so he was like, we have to investigate all that stuff. But then also another comment that I made in one of the comments I made in my TikTok was that like, why didn't the local councillors like keep on top of this, like making sure that the drains were gullied, or I think that's the word he used, like were emptied, so that like when it rains it just goes down and down and down and down, whatever. And he said actually that the council workers don't just, there's not like a schedule where they just go around every week going to different places and emptying out the gullies or emptying out the drains. Like, that's not a thing. It only happens when your local councillor calls and says, can you drain this? So then in my head I'm thinking, so did you call? But no, he said like it can take a month. Like, you can call and say, I'd like this place to be for you guys to work on the drains here, and then a month later somebody will show up. And it's not like the council workers' fault, like, which I never was even blaming them, to be fair. I still kind of was blaming the councillors, but I was like, they're under resourced, they're understaffed. Like, there's only so much that they can do, and like they work. He was telling me like they work at the ass crack of dawn to get the stuff done. So I was like, okay, shout out to the council workers. Do you know what I mean? One thing I will say though, because I had to bring up my bus. I don't know how many times I've talked about my bus on TikTok, like it, and everybody who knows me knows the 47 is the bane of my existence. It's literally the only reason I learned to drive. If I had a good bus service, I probably would never have learned to drive. I like, now that I can drive, I'm happy, but like I probably would have never learned to drive. But just the worst bus on earth. And every single time somebody runs for local politics here, they always say, they always say we're gonna make the bus service better, like we're gonna reach out to the NTA and all these people, like we're gonna improve it, like I'm gonna work hard to get you that the dependable bus service. Why is it worse? Why is it genuinely worse than it's ever been, to the point that it's a new timetable? Where I live, like this part of Dublin, I think has the highest amount of like construction in the country, or in Dublin anyway. Like, the amount of apartments they're building, like every single time I drive within like 15-20 minutes of where I live, I'm seeing a new apartment building every time. But I'm like, and yet there's no reliable bus here. Does that make sense? Like, the Lewis is here, but actually from where some of these new apartments are built, you could not walk to the Lewis from there. You couldn't walk to the Lewis from there. You would need a bus. So why is it that the bus is not dependable? Hmm? So I said, why is it that everybody who runs here says that they're going to help out with the bus and then it never does? And it actually, I learned something interesting. So basically, he said that he always like emails the CEOs because they answer to the Minister for Transport. So he always emails the CEOs asking them about like how are they choosing these bus routes, like what's going on, why are these buses always delayed, like, we need more bus times and stuff like that. All the kind of questions that people would ask. But one, they don't answer to him, they answer to the Minister for Transport. So it's like he can only do so much. So he'll CC the Minister for Transport. But then I said, okay, but like, would you not be in communication with the local TDs here? Like, would it matter? Like, would it help if you're a TD? And he said, actually, like, since these people answer to the Minister for Transport, then it would make sense for the local TD who's in the same party as whoever's in government. So, if you're in Fine Gael, it would make, and the government's Fine Gael, it's Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael right now. So it makes sense for local TDs who are Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil to be reaching out to the Minister for Transport themselves, calling for a better bus service, right? So I'm like, so do they do that? Like, do you talk to them? Why did I think that our local TDs and our local councillors literally just sat like once a week, just chatted to each other, or they had a group chat or whatever? Because you're all in the same constituency, you're all serving the same people. Like, obviously, the same people didn't vote for you. I mean, in some cases, they might have, transferred their votes, but like, but whatever the case is, whoever voted for you, you're now in this place. You guys, I would assume, would be able to work together, would be able to, you have the same agenda. They do not talk to each other, bro. They do not talk to each other. I don't know why I had so much hope that like party politics wasn't really taking over in a local sense. Like, maybe it was just in the doll and stuff like that. Call me naive, okay? But he was like, yeah, sometimes when I email, um, these CEOs and ask them for stuff, I'll CC, like, Neil Richmond is one of my local TDs. I'll CC him, and then maybe, and like the other four TDs that are here, I'll CC them, and then like maybe sometimes they won't even answer. Sometimes they won't even answer. And then also, he said Neil Richmond's assistant once replied saying, "Thanks, Sosheen, for, whatever, for this email," and that was it. That was it. And I just was like, what? And he said, like, obviously TDs have like bigger remits, like they could be dealing with international things or could be dealing with bigger issues. And I was like, honestly, I don't really care what bigger issues that they could be dealing with, because if I vote for you to handle business in my area, handle business in my area. No, I didn't vote for Fine Gael, and I didn't vote for Fianna Fáil, and I didn't vote for the Greens, and like I didn't vote for any of these people. But still, maybe I did. I think I maybe could have put Greens on my like list. I don't think I did though. Um, but yeah, like, if you're in my area, can you focus on my area? I don't care if you're a TD. Like, obviously there's TDs who are ministers who have big issues and stuff like that. But look, if you're a backbencher and you're not actually in like a minister or anything, like even a junior minister, then you have no excuse to not be doing stuff for your local constituents. It makes me think of what's his name? Oh, Michael. Michael Lowry, right? He keeps getting voted in for in his area because he is loyal down to the Tipperary people. He's corrupt as hell. He is corrupt as hell, but he's corrupt for his people. I'm not saying that's a good thing, and I'm not saying that people should keep voting for him. I think he's actually really, really like not a good person, and like he gives politics a bad name. But like, that is why people vote for you, because you do things for your constituents. So why, as a TD, would you not be working so hard to deal with the issues that are here? Obviously, I need to talk to this guy, and I need to talk to. I have the next two on my list are Sinead Gibney and Neil Richmond. They're the next two that I'm gonna call, because you can just call these people up. What if you just call Taylor up? You can just call them and talk to them, so I can just ask them all of this. Like, why don't you liaise more often with the local councillors? Like, I don't know. And it's also, I was talking to this councillor, like, his name's Ocean. I was talking to him, and I was like, so what is the role of a counselor versus what is the role of a TD? Like, who do you reach out for these kind of things? And he was like, it depends, and like there's sometimes like overlaps, but like it's kind of hard. Like, he'll explain it a lot better, but yeah, I just didn't realize how fragmented local politics was. Also, competition. He was saying that it's like it can get really competitive, like, because obviously you're always trying to score votes, so you're actually not even working that much with other councillors. Like, you might vote kind of like similarly in council meetings based on like your politics, like left or right. And now politics has gotten so different, like left and right is not what it used to be. But like, you'd kind of be, that's where your alliances would be, like kind of those votes. But in general, you wouldn't really be working together with other councillors, which I'm just like, "Ugh, but we're all working in the same area and you're all working for the same people." Like, I just don't actually get it. Well, you're not in the exact same area, but you're in the same vicinity. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just like, why don't, let's be family. Let's work together. Do you get me? But I don't know. It just was like, I would love to. to talk more about it, like to talk more to this counselor and to talk more to my TDs. And she'd be like, "What the hell is tea? Like, why can't you guys? Why can't we just love each other? Why can't we just work together? Like, does it always have to be so like messy and catty and like he was even saying that he wasn't even really on social media that much for his campaign because it like gets really messy, which I was like, for local politics, like, is it that deep? But I guess it is, guys. Honestly, I don't think I pay too much attention to local politics, which is like you really should because that's the stuff that impacts you the most directly. But I don't know. I really kind of went in on a long rampage about this, but I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting. So hopefully we can have him on. He said he'd come on, so I'll see if maybe next week he can come on next week or like the week after he can come on and he can explain all this and like I'll do a TikTok and be like, what type of questions would you guys like to ask a local councillor so that I can ask that and he can tell me all of that stuff, you know? But yeah, that is Storm Chandra and also my councillor. So let's talk about the SOC Dems disability payment motion. So I feel like every party kind of has a thing like that they push for, and I'd say the SOC Dems thing is disability. Like they really advocate for people with disabilities, and like I feel like if they were to join a coalition, like this is like something that they really couldn't um like this would be the buck stops here. Like if we don't have they want a minister for disabilities, like they say, and like not a junior minister, like an actual full on minister for disabilities. So like that's their thing. So for the past few weeks, like since before Christmas, they've been calling for an emergency €400 payment to people with disabilities, and that's because with this new budget, a lot of people were losing out on the one-off payments in the government. Like I talked about this in my podcast a few weeks ago, but a lot of people lost out with the once-off payments because of the cost of living is over, apparently. Do you know what I mean? The cost of living's done. Inflation's still a bit rocky, but the cost of no. I think it's cost of living is still here. We're in a cost of living crisis, but inflation is down, so it's okay. That's the line that the government likes to throw out there, right? So according to the Disability Federation of Ireland, people with disabilities have lost €1,400 a year because of this most recent budget. So the SOCDEM said, okay, because you've actually completely screwed these people off over, the least you can do is give them a €400 once-off payment, and they've been advocating for this and pushing for this for the past few weeks. And then there was a motion this week in the Dáil, for this, and it was voted on, and it was voted against by the government, of course. So the which is crazy because actually they said they did the maths and it was like it would cost the state 124 million, which in the grand scheme of things is really not that much. And I don't want to say anything too crazy on here without sounding like an asshole, but Sinn Féin are in the news recently because the government was calling them out. Like, let me not say anything too crazy because I need to get my words right. But there was a bit of a beef between Sinn Féin and the government because because Sinn Féin said that they voted against an EU loan to Ukraine, a 90 billion euro loan, right? And the government were like, "How dare you? Like, I'm horrified that you would even think that." And Sinn Féin were kind of like, "Well, actually, there's a bit of a cost of living crisis here. You've taken away people's once-off payments. People are struggling to put food on the kitchen, to put food on the table, to light up their house, to put heat in their house. All of these things, but like." Your main concern at the moment is Ukraine. And like I'm not saying that Ukraine shouldn't get the support that they deserve, obviously, but I just don't understand why you would vote against something like this. Like 124 million is, in the grand scheme of things, is not that much, but you're calling out Sinn Féin because they don't want to contribute to a 90 billion euro loan to Ukraine. I mean, it's not like we're offering 90 billion, it's like the EU in general, but like we're not even actually giving it. It's not like we're giving Ukraine money for like gas and heating and all of these things. We're giving them money for weapons. Do you know what I mean? And like obviously they need weapons. Like you can't fight a war with words, I guess. I don't know, but I just it's a bit of a messy one still. Like you couldn't give people 100 like 124 million is not a lot for like a state this wealthy, you know? And the Minister for Social Protection said his name's Dara Cleary or Cleary. Am I saying that right? Dara Cleary said the government was clear there would be no more one-off payments, and I'm like, oh, okay, you said that, but it's okay to go back on your word sometimes. You seem to do it a lot, actually. So maybe this one time, I think you could make an exception when you see how much people are suffering. I don't know. I just government confuses me. I mean, they don't confuse me. They do exactly what they've set out to do always, which is put the rich first and let us suffer, but sure look, sure listen. Anyway, next. Oh my god, no, I need to stop being so dreary. I said that I would stop that last episode. Well, I didn't say it in the last episode, but after I listened back to it, I was like, sometimes the way I speak is so like the end of the world. I'm like, that's just the way it is. This is how it's gonna go. And like, I just feel like I'm so, like, I feel like maybe I sound so like hopeless or something, but I'm like, no, there's actually things you can do. You can vote, first of all, for different people to be empowered. That's one thing. You can join parties, you can campaign, like you don't have to feel so like you can, there's other ways to feel like making a contribution, and that like, oh my god, the government's ruining things. Like, okay, it's not going to be like this way forever. Don't feel that way, because then the government get away with doing these things, like it becomes the status quo. Like, no, it doesn't actually have to be this way. There are alternatives out there, and you can find alternatives that suit you, and you can support those alternatives. So I need to stop being so like, this is it, because it's not it, It's not it. Next. So, the girls are fighting, okay? Honestly, do you know what? I don't think I paid enough attention to politics before, even like during my politics degree. Oops. To be fair, I was only really focusing on international politics, so I didn't really know much what was going on here. So I don't know if this is normal or what. But Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil seem to be so not getting along recently and throwing each other under the bus. I've noticed this recent in the past few months, like this new term they are not getting along at all, even the end of the last political term or whatever. So whatever, they're fighting again, right? And let me give you a bit of a bit of history or a bit of context, right? So the National Development Plan came out recently. I mean, it came out like last year, but they put it forward and put it through like now, like clarified that it's starting now. And it's basically a plan to invest in infrastructure in the country over the next like 10 years, and it's going to be in two parts, like from 2026 to 2030, and then from 2030 to 2035, and it's like 200 billion euro invested in this. And this is the money that's going to be used for the metro. Like the metro is getting 2 billion from this development plan. Education is getting 7.55 billion. Health, I don't know how much they're getting, but like every, like tourism, like all of these places, water, housing, it's like they're trying to invest in infrastructure, like put a lot of money to investing in infrastructure so that we can kind of like kickstart this place, because like obviously Storm Chandra just also exposed the gaps that we have when it comes to infrastructure in this country, right? Anyway, so now that the context is given, 7.55 billion, right, is going to education. So and that's 7.55 billion, so that's from 2026 to 2030. So Hilda Nochtengard, I don't know, Hildegard Naughton, jeez, I'm really fucking up this girl's name, bless her. Hildegard Naughton invest some money into schools around the country, 105 schools to be specific. 10 of these schools are in her constituency. So 10% of the 105, 10% of the schools that are getting support are in her constituency of Galway, right? So Malcolm Byrne, who's a Fianna Fáil TD, says that's a bit weird, that's a bit suspicious, that's a bit odd that 10% of that would go to one constituency in the entire country, right? And he calls this out publicly. So now everybody's like, what the fuck is going on? Why are you saying this? Fine Gael backbenchers and Fine Gael TDs are now saying you can't actually say that because it's just not true. Like, she's not really commenting on it. She said, like, some places have more growing areas than others, like a growing population. Kildare, for example. Galway just happens to be one of those places where, there's a growing population there, so they need more investments than other schools in other countries, in other counties. So it's like, my bad. It just happens to be my constituency that has a growing population. Deal with it. So Malcolm Byrne, who's the Fianna Fáil TD, who called this out, he said, I'm not apologising for calling this out. Barry Ward, who's the Dunleary TD, he was like, I reject that you would, like, I don't understand why you would insinuate that or why you would make that claim. And Malcolm Byrne's like, well, actually, if Dunleary was struggling for support in schools, but it's not, it's a wealthy South Side area, if it was struggling for support for its local schools, he also would be calling it out. But because he's not struggling, he doesn't have to call it out. So he's just like supporting his girl, but it's like that's not fair. Like my area is struggling. What about me? What about me? What about my people? So he's saying he's speaking out for them. And if any other TD in the same position would do the same, right? But anyway, so now Fine Gael are saying, like, they're getting annoyed now because they're thinking, why do you guys keep baiting us out in public? Like, why do Fianna Fáil keep talking about, like, keep my wife's name out your mouth? Like, why do you keep baiting us out in public? We could be doing the same to you. Which is funny because I feel like Fine Gael do that low key. But they said they might start doing the same. Like if you want to start putting names out into the area, if you want to get public with it, if you want to have these conversations out loud, let's have these conversations out loud. James Brown, let's start there. Fianna Fáil, a minister for housing, let's start there. We can start talking about him out loud if you want. If you want to keep these, if you don't want to keep these conversations private, that's no problem with me. Let's talk about it in public. So they're saying let's take it to the streets, which is funny as hell. I feel like they're both as bad as each other. Do you know what I mean? Like Fine Gael said that like Fianna Fáil kept like baiting out some of their councillors, like Helen McEntee, for example, when she was Minister for Justice, they kept kind of talking shit about her and talking about how badly she was doing, and they kept saying it in public. So they're like, we're kind of sick of this now. So they might start baiting out Fianna Fáil in public. I would like to see it. I would like to see the coalition start to crumble, Loki. Like, I want to see cracks in maybe the cracks are there, but I would like to see some more cracks. I'd like to see some holes in the foundation. Do you know what I mean? Like that is funny as hell. And yeah, let's see what happens next. Honestly, I'm just gonna do two really, really quick updates on the triple lock and the rents, kind of the rent tenancies amendment bill. Okay, it's because I talked about it last week, so I don't want to get too much into it. With the triple lock, they've started, and with this rent bill, they've started kind of going through the stages, right? Or no, they haven't gone to the stages yet with the rent bill, but the triple lock is now starting to go through. It's been approved by cabinet, and they've added an amendment to it, or like a change to it, which means that they're going to have an annual report, because the Oireachtas Committee on National Defence, on Defence and National Security said you need to have something in place to replace the UN Council. Like you can't just be sending troops out wherever you want with no checks and balances. Like there needs to be accountability, basically. So what the government have said is, no bother, you want accountability? Here's an accountability. We will announce an annual report. We will publish one. And in this report, we will basically say where the troops are going, one, um, how long, or the legal basis for them being there, and third, if they're meeting their objectives by being there. That's all they've said. They said, like, what this report will do, I don't know. Like, is it that once it's published, there'll be debates in the Dáil? Like, what can we do with this report is my question. Like, obviously there'll be debates, but it's like, and then what? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is the report doesn't actually do anything, because the opposition wanted them to introduce an independent legal assessment, so that like it would be independent from the government, somebody else. But then the government were like, well, then that defeats us taking back our sovereignty if we're now depending on this independent legal review to do it, because we want to be the one who decides. We want to be the big dogs, the big bosses, you know? So fuck that independent legal review. We'll just do it. We'll do our own report and release. I mean, like, what the hell are they thinking? Oh, do you know what? Doesn't matter. No, it does matter. Obviously, it does matter. And there's an Irish Neutrality League that are really pushing for this, and like the Soc Dems are part of it. I think Labour are there, people for profit that are really pushing for this. I don't know if Labour's there, so don't quote me on that. I know people for profit and Soc Dems are, um, who are really pushing for them to not dismantle the triple lock. So the fight is there. The fight is there, and they're gonna, like, because now it's going through all the different stages. So now that it's there, they can debate it in public now and like in the Dáil. So we'll see what happens, and they're gonna really fight for that. Okay. Also, so the rent amendment tenancies bill, not much of an update actually, but I just figured I understand it more than I did last week when I was talking about it. Because last week I was like, actually, what is really stressing people about what about this? Like, why are people being evicted right now? Like, what is, like, why are landlords doing that? And I listened to the Irish Times, and they explained it better than I did last week. And basically, they were talking about how right now, when you're in a rent pressure zone, right? And it's basically like the rent goes up once a year, only every 12 months, and it's tied to inflation, or it can go up by 2%. So if inflation, it's like whatever's lower. So if inflation is 1.5%, it'll go up by 1.5%. But if inflation is 2% or 2.5%, then it'll go by 2% because that's what's lower, right? So I was confused about what about these new changes? Is what's the problem? So the tenancies thing is happening where, you have to have, it's the reason they're doing that is so there can be security for tenants, right? 6 years. When you sign your lease, you have at least 6 years, okay? But the problem now is in a rent pressure zone, which is the entire country now. The entire country is becoming a rent pressure zone from March 1st, okay? The problem is before these annual increases in a rent pressure zone were tied to the property. So whenever the property became on the market, so it wasn't tied to like the whole 6 years, you can reset it, whatever. Once the property's on the market, that's it. It's 2% or 1.5% or whatever the inflation rate. That is it. Now, in a rent pressure zone, these increases are tied to the tenancies, okay? So, or the rent pressure zone is tied to the tenancies. So now every single time a new tenancy starts or a new person leaves and a new person starts, signs a contract, they can set the rent to market price. So that's why all of these people are kicking out, like people who've lived in their houses forever. Like everyone's being kicked out. The landlords are kicking everyone out because they're saying, "Oh, sure, like I've been stuck in the situation where I could only increase it by 2% or 1.5% because that's what it was because my property was on the market and that was it. But now I can do it based on tenancy. So if I can kick all of these people out, then now I can reset it finally to whatever the market price is now." And they can continue to do this as much as they want. Well, they can't keep kicking people out. That's why the 6 year thing is in. But think about people who have moved out now, have been kicked out now because this whole thing is coming in March. Everybody's now outside looking for somewhere to live, and all these prices are going to be so crazy. And there's not even enough rental properties on the market to accommodate all of these people. So that's an issue. And then also why students were so stressed, again, like I think I talked about this last week, is because obviously you're starting a new place every single year. Imagine you live in the same place for 2 years or whatever, but then you go in Erasmus. I got this from the group chat. Shout out to them. But say you go in Erasmus, then when you come back, you have to deal with this. And also, these contracts aren't even 9 months anymore because students used to be able to kind of sign 9 month long contracts because you usually go home for the summer. Now you have to sign 12 months. So even when you're not even there, you have to pay that. So that is what's happening right now, is that the properties, the increases are no longer tied to the properties, they're tied to the tenancies. So landlords can just keep re-upping and re-upping and re-upping whenever they want. And like all these people that have been kicked out of their accommodation, like the girl that I know has been kicked out, they were saying that maybe tenants will like landlords will change something, they'll take their property off the market, they'll install something, renovate it a tiny bit, and then put it back on the market and say this is a new property basically, so hence I'm starting at a new price. So it's not looking good for people, low key. It's a bit of a mess, but yeah, that is my update. It's kind of a longer update than I wanted, but I hope it makes sense because last week I was confused, but I listened to that and I was like, okay, this actually makes more sense, and that's why rents are gonna go up. Okay. Okay, so last topic of the day is about scrambler bikes. So this is related to Grace Lynch, who tragically passed away. She was only 16 years old when she was hit by one of these scrambler bikes. I'll be honest, I don't actually think I've even ever seen a scrambler bike in person. I had to like look it up online. And like apparently these have been like really devastating to some communities. Like it's actually such a big thing in communities like Finglas, they were saying is a big one where these scrambler bikes are everywhere. I just don't leave my house enough to see this. But yeah, like it's apparently such a massive thing, and it's like they're and like I've seen videos of them and they are so dangerous. And basically the regulation, the law is there. And this is starting another conversation about when a law is introduced, how do you start implementing it? And why haven't we implemented this law already? So there's laws in place for scrambler bikes, and Michal Martin said that the government are going to be seeking to have a complete ban of scrambler bikes on the roads, because right now you can have a scrambler bike on the road if it meets the right vehicle standards, and vehicle standards are the ones that are on like cars. Like, you have to have your insurance, you have to have a license plate, you have to, have your tax, and also you should be wearing a helmet, like a high vis jacket when you're on it, all these kind of things. And if you don't meet those standards, then you should not be on the road. Like, it's off, like, you can only be on the road if you're meeting these standards. Problem is, people aren't meeting these standards and they're still on the road, and guards haven't been taking the bikes away from people, and they haven't been like checking on them. Like, if you see somebody could be driving, it's the same way as like learner drivers driving around without somebody in the car when they should have someone in the car. It's like the guards might see somebody driving, but they don't know for sure. Or someone who's driving in a car without tax or without insurance, like a guard may see that car go by, but unless they stop and ask them, insurance please, tax please, they don't know if that person is actually obeying the law. So it's the same with the scrambler bikes, where they see these bikes but they don't know which one is meeting vehicle standards and which ones aren't. So they're not enforcing this law, they're not seizing these bikes because they're not asking people. And now it's like they should have been implementing this, they should have been taking this kind of as seriously as they do with other vehicles. So the government have said that they're gonna introduce a complete ban, because it's like, one, you weren't even implement, like, why this law came in 3 years ago about the vehicle standards for scrambler bikes and making sure that people who were on the road had all of this, all the right standards, but they didn't implement it. 3 years, bruh, 3 years. So there's just a question of why. Like, and it's not like nobody was telling the government this is a big issue. Apparently, backbenchers for the government have been saying this for years. Like, hello, can you be like, this is really stressing people out to see these bikes just fucking flying down the road. They don't obey by the same rules as cars do, even if they should. Like, Grace Lynch was going across a pedestrian crossing. That bike should have stopped, but it didn't, you know? So again, it's like they should have been implementing this law this whole time. So I think we're past that now. We're past, you know, license plate and registration. We're way past that. It's bitch, get off the fucking road. It's too late now. So we're looking for, they're trying to ban it. People want to completely banned altogether, like not even off road use. But I think for right now, this is what they're doing. They're also thinking of doing a buyback scheme, because they were saying we don't want to punish people who've bought these bikes and like now can't even use them or whatever. It's kind of like the knife one that we did. And the UK also does buyback schemes with knives, where they'll give you money if you bring a knife in, or they just want to arrest you for having it in the first place. But yeah, they said that they might think of something like this, where you can bring your bike back and like give it to the guards or whatever, and then they'll pay you for it. That's like, you're not losing out on money because you can't be on the road with this anymore. So we'll see if they actually do that. But yeah, this is definitely a situation where the government should feel ashamed for them, like for themselves, and the guards as well, for not implementing this law and for not actually enforcing it. And it's like, what is the point of introducing a law that you're not going to enforce? Like, you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Like, this has been 3 years since this was introduced. So yeah, shame on the government for this. And oh my god, prayers to Grace Lynch's family. I just can't even imagine. Like, I saw Grace's mum on the news when they did that like walk. Like loads of people walked the route that she had walked before she was tragically killed, and like, just honestly, so unbelievably devastating. So prayers to her. And I actually read about another guy who a few years ago, he lost an eye because he was, I think it was Darndale Park, and he was lying down and a scrambler bike landed on his head. Bro, that really should have been the last straw, I feel. But since then, people have been killed or have been seriously injured. I mean, yeah, I think this was just like the straw that broke the camel's back, because this is not a not hasn't been the first situation. Um, but yeah, so we'll see if they actually implement that. But that is all we have for this week. I mean, it's been an hour. I've been yapping for too long. Honestly, I need to make the episode shorter, but I just had so much to say this week. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next week. Maybe with a guest. The fact that my first guest is going to be a counselor is so funny, but I mean, we'll see. We shall see. Anyway, bye guys.